All right. Welcome back once again to our special edition and sixth episode of the Pop Culture Cafe. I'm your host, Will Martell, and my co-host is Mr. Clint Heiberger, who is holding the old school WWE WWF World Heavyweight Championship. And all right, I gotta get this
WrestleMania 4 edition.
Yeah, I gotta get this big gold for you. This here is a gimmick belt. Okay,
right.
If you can see it, this is the gimmick belt that actually that was bestowed upon me in 2004. I happened to get a replica of it,
right,
of the ECPW World Heavyweight Championship that I won in front of a sold-out crowd at Windy City Fieldhouse. Like
nice.
I said, back in 2004, it was a great night. My son, he got to see it. I don't know if he would remember it because he was only 4 years old, and he was sitting there with my mom, my sister, and a whole bunch of other people in the front row. And it was a great night. And I got to go against Willie the Bomb Richardson, who I mentioned yesterday, and he is one of the greatest guys that I had ever been in the ring with, plus the greatest tag team that had a short stint in the WWE, the Void Effect. So,
nice.
Man, there's a lot to cover with this WrestleMania weekend, and the second half is tonight. But we're going to start off with WrestleMania, then we're going to go into a movie Clint seen and a movie that I seen, which was the Gotti movie, which was my first time seeing it, starring John Travolta and his late wife, Kelly Preston.
Yeah.
So,
great movie.
Let's start off with WrestleMania. What? I'm sorry, I'm laughing because we talked about this off camera.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt that there were certain things about this WrestleMania that looked rushed, that looked like the production led a lot to be desired. So before I start on my rant towards that, Clint, tell me, and your opinion is very serious to me. I think you're one of the most knowledgeable guys that has ever talked to me, aside from another worker in the business, about the business. So what did you think of at least some of the show last night?
You know where I'm going to go with this too. The show, in my opinion, wasn't bad. Here's my thing. I'm not like Becky Lynch, but Bianca Belair. That was a good match. I'm not a fan of either one.
Yeah.
I'm not. Man. But I'm surprised. Like, I am actually surprised they took the belt off of Lynch. I am, because she was almost the stalemate of the women's division, because she
right.
And honestly, I think Shayna Baszler should have beat her the year before, or when she faced her at Mania that year. But congratulations to Bianca Belair, you earned it. Then we had Rey Mysterio, Logan Paul, and The Miz.
Logan Paul, I got my opinions on that match. So go for it.
Logan Paul didn't look the worst, but you know what?
No, he didn't.
He did.
I was shocked.
Yeah, and he had some training in, you could tell.
Yeah.
But
I was shocked.
I'm gonna go forward, and I'm gonna go to I'm actually gonna go to the Seth Rollins surprise match. I was like, honestly, it's been years since wrestling has shocked me, and I knew about Cody Rhodes coming to WWE. But then the rumors, because Shane McMahon was supposed to, he was there that weekend. So I'm like, well, okay, maybe it's not Cody Rhodes. So, and the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay, well, here we go. Here comes the money, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then the lights went out and the pyro went out. And then I'm like, and I heard the theme song. I heard that fucking theme song. I'm like, no effing way. I'm like, okay, that was step one. Step two was, are they going to book it the way it should be?
Right.
I was like, I didn't really want to get too much chills, because I was like, okay, it's not guaranteed if Cody's going to win this. So I'm watching the match very carefully. I'm eyeball fucking everything in that match.
Right.
I'm like, ooh. And then when he hit the the Crossroads, the third Crossroads, I'm like, and I heard 1, 2, 3. I'm like, WWE did something right. I was like, okay, now how are they going to book him?
Okay.
There's not a reason. There's a reason why he left AEW. I mean, it's a company he built up. But then I read an interview where he's like, I'm not managing a wrestling company ever again. So I wonder if there was like conflict between him and Tony Khan.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure it was.
That's what I'm thinking it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was, brother. I
yeah.
mean, you know, being in that business as long as I had been in it, and knowing some of the stuff I know, because really, and this will be revealed in a new show that I got called My Story.
Okay.
Which
I've seen the preview of that.
Right, which you are going to be profiled on there. It's going to be a bunch of people profiled on this show. And I've been working on this the last 2 years off and on.
Okay.
So at some point, I'm going to get, have an episode with you. I'm going to have an episode with people around Dubuque that do extraordinary things.
Right.
So it can go from what we do to business people to a business owner that built up everything. But anyhow, I really felt that, I thought maybe Seth Rollins was told to kind of shoot on Cody a little bit because Cody looked really beat up after that match. Yeah. And that gave, that raised some concerns.
Yeah, the march and everything.
Like, okay, this man came back.
Yeah.
Okay, after 6 years. And here it is that during this entire match, man, Seth Rollins was pretty much shooting on him. So I was wondering if Bruce Pritchard, one of the handlers in the back, or even Vince himself was telling him, okay, well, he dissed our company. Because if you remember, some of the stuff that Seth Rollins was saying to him in the ring, you can hear it.
Welcome back to the big leagues. that match was, welcome back to the big leagues, bitch.
Yeah, welcome back to the big leagues, which was a stab.
Yeah, at AEW for sure.
AEW being lower than WWE. Okay, but, be that as it may, I kind of felt like that match was kind of lackluster. I didn't think they brought Cody back in the right way.
Right.
I thought if they were going to bring him in, they should have teased it up until, or even had his return happen at some later point,
right?
Where it could have been teased, the anticipation could have built up, just built up a little bit, and bam, we got it.
Yeah.
Because you have to throw people off. It was kind of like that thing with AJ Styles.
Yeah. I remember that Royal Rumble.
In the history of mankind. Okay.
Or CM Punk in Chicago. I mean, they just threw him on an episode of Dynamite, and because that was no big secret with CM Punk. Right. And I go back to my opinion of the social media Google aspect. I go back to that. It's like, leave it up to be a surprise. Like, don't, like when Luger came on Monday Nitro, I was like, you got to remember, I'm 14 years old and I'm not hip to the business or anything. And I'm just like, as a fan,
right.
And then, I don't know, it just, to me, like the CM Punk thing and everything was leading up to that night in Chicago.
Right. Absolutely.
Nothing was a surprise. Right. Everybody, even the pan crowd, the pan shot of the crowd was going, CM Punk, and then you heard the music and it's like, everybody knew it. But it's like, where was the real, surprise aspect of it? Like I said, I was kind of shocked about it because I heard the rumors, but I didn't expect it. I was like, okay, maybe it will be Shane. Because if it was Shane McMahon, holy fuck, he would have been pissed.
Oh, right. Yeah, it would have, that anticipation would have kind of went into the toilet a little bit.
Exactly.
It didn't really shock me that Cody was coming back because he was on some interviews with, the dirt sheets and all that stuff, saying that he was really unhappy kind of at the end of the run with AEW.
Yeah.
Because Yeah, and he also said, yeah, I'll never run a wrestling company again. And I'm wondering, just as you are wondering, if there was some behind the scenes politics
Mm-hmm.
and things like that on Cody's position and Tony Khan's position, because when you're
Right.
hired to do a job, okay, and your ideas, you're putting out all these ideas to your quote unquote boss,
Yeah.
and your boss hired you to do that. Well, it's kind of like running in place.
Yeah.
It's running in place. So, I'm wondering if there was some conflicts, and I can really, say here in all honesty to the people that's watching that there was some, because Tony Khan, to me, is an egotistical, self-centered guy that has,
Spoiled little
like,
brat.
right, he's a brat, and he has all
I'll
this
flat out say it.
access to his daddy's money.
Yeah.
And
I was at the casino last night. I actually talked to a dude. I didn't get to that, but I was wearing an Undertaker shirt and we were talking about that, and I said the same thing. I was like, he's like, yeah, he's like, I don't know what, like, AEW was a good thing at first, but now it's just like Tony Khan, he got spoiled with a paycheck. Now he's all, and then yeah, it's just, I'm like, and he says that's one thing, and I told him, I was like, that's one of the things we've been talking about on the podcast, and we got another fan coming, by the way, so we got hopefully another subscriber. So I gave him my info and all that, and I was like, you ever want to talk wrestling or anything like that? Like, that's, boxing, wrestling, MMA, movies, film, the whole 9 yards. And everybody seems to agree that Tony Khan he's basically that spoiled brat who, if he doesn't get the toy he wants at Walmart, he gets on the ground and starts like that. I'm serious. Like, I just don't. Tony Khan.
Oh man,
he's starting too much. I mean, history is repeating itself, and that's the thing. Like, and these AEW marks, like I said, drives me absolutely fucking crazy.
Yeah, I know, man.
We've had that conversation countless times last night.
Yeah.
And the one thing, I mean, I placed a wager with myself. I was like, okay, I'm going to treat myself to something really, really pricey myself. If 5 minutes, if somebody doesn't mention the whole Cody Rhodes thing in 5 minutes and the whole AEW mark, it took 2 minutes for somebody to be like, the American sellout. I was like, well, I guess I lost that battle.
Okay.
It's like,
so my question is, to the mark that said that, and I even hate using that term, really.
Yeah.
I always have. Exactly. But it's the lingo, I guess, in the wrestling world.
Yep.
Okay, which means fan to those of you that don't know. It means something more than that, but I'll get into that at a later time. But yeah. Okay, so my question is, how is Cody a sellout when he obviously had a conflict with the owner of the company, which, to me, I don't think Tony Khan should be a guy that's even running a wrestling company.
Hell no.
Because he was a fan, and the way he looks at the wrestling business is not from a business standpoint like a Vince McMahon that has been one of the cornerstones of the entire business for over 70 years?
Yeah.
I mean,
he's been in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. He took that and made it to World Wrestling. Father. Yeah.
So he got educated on the business. He grew up in the business.
Yep.
And he was able to acquire the business from his dad.
Yeah.
So, to me, Tony Khan will never be Vince. I'm sorry to say that to everybody, but he will never, ever be Vince. He will never, ever have AEW come up to the level of a WWE, period, or even a New Japan.
Yeah, that's my favorite. People are like, like Chris Jericho said, Tony Khan's going to run wrestling in the next 5 years. You know, to comments like that, and to people who are, you know, AEW and want to not be watch WWE. Okay, listen, the AEW marks, I guarantee you, they're the ones also watching WrestleMania.
Yep.
Flat out.
Believe
you know,
that.
And it's like, you know, get your head out of your ass. Yeah, and I stay by this. I stand by this comment. Like I've said to you, Will. Why is the wrestling business and why is it there today if we all can't just shut the fuck up and enjoy? It's like, shut the fuck up, get your head out of your fucking ass, and fucking just enjoy the product.
Okay, so
that's
what did I tell you last night?
Oh, yeah.
This is exactly what I told you.
Yeah.
I said when the curtain was open.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now back in the time that I got into wrestling and got introduced to it.
Yep.
Basically, up close and personal was 1986, when the business was still closed and you had to be a family member or had to be a worker in order to get in the locker room. I happened to had someone that I once called my big brother that actually started wrestling at 19, way before I even got in it.
Right.
He was the one that was in the business, and that's where I got to meet a guy like Baron von Raschke, God bless him.
Yep, great guy.
And he sat there. I mean, I'm a 16-year-old, 15-year-old kid sitting there with one of the legends in the business. And I'm sitting there and, you know, I'm being introduced to him. He's like, hey, how you doing, kid? Hey, Mr. Von Raschke, fine. Oh, you don't have to call me Mr. Von Raschke. Yeah, here, have a seat. Now, this man was sitting there when we seen him with his legs up, kicked back, laying on a bench with his spectacles, reading a book on Sigmund Freud. Okay, so we go over. My buddy introduced me to him. He says, hey, have a seat. My buddy took off. He was working somebody that night. And Baron's like, hey, kid, so, you know, you look pretty skinny right now. So when are you going to get into the business? And I'm like, I have no idea, Mr. Von Raschke. Well, let me give you some advice. I'm like, any would be great.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, kid, just remember one rule in this business. Shut up and listen. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that sounds like good advice.
Yeah. So later on, when I'm sitting with my tag team partner, Dante Devious, you know, that's still my boy. I haven't talked to him in a lot of years, but we had formed a team of the Devious presentation, and we were over at Windy City Pro Wrestling. And the first time that I got to sit down with Sam DeCero, and Sam DeCero, if for those that don't know, was a part of the legendary Max Brothers that went against the Road Warriors in the AWA. Right? So I'm sitting down with him, and we had a meeting with him because we were going to go join the company. So Sam is sitting down, and he's looking at me, and he's looking at Dante, and he's like, so guys, you know, he asked us a bunch of questions, our background, where we trained, all that stuff. And he told us a story about him and Nick Bockwinkel. And the story of Nick Bockwinkel went something like this. He said, I showed up for the match. Okay, I go in the locker room. I'm, you know, introducing myself to everybody and, you know, yada, yada, yada. And he says that Nick Bockwinkel comes up to him. And he says, hey, you're going to be working me tonight, you know, in the Nick Bockwinkel sort of diction.
Right.
He's like, you're going to be working me tonight and not all that. And he told Sam, he said, one rule in this business, shut the fuck up and listen. So I think going back to the Tony Khan, Cody Rhodes thing, Cody Rhodes, to his credit, has spent his entire life in professional wrestling. his dad, the legendary Dusty Rhodes, God rest his soul, he used to go to my grandma's restaurant to eat whenever he was in Chicago. All right, that's another story. So, so here's a man that spent his entire life in the business, and he has this falling out with some spoiled rich kid that is exhausting his daddy's pocketbook because he wants to prove that his Johnson is bigger than everybody else's. So go figure. Cody had a falling out with him.
Yeah, that's what I assumed it was too.
Yeah. So basically, getting back to the WrestleMania thing, here's my thoughts on the match between Bianca Belair and
Becky Lynch.
I felt that the match told a compelling story. I felt that things were put in the right place for that match. I felt that the women on that card that night kind of outshined the guys.
They did.
You know, I really do think so.
It made perfect sense too.
That's the basis of wrestling, telling a compelling story.
Right.
You know, and knowing where to put certain things. Well, the Charlotte Flair Ronda Rousey match, I think, for the lack of a better word, it was a fuck finish.
Yeah.
There's no way.
I mean,
even if I was the writer, I would not have even thought about a finish like that.
Yeah.
And this is just coming from a guy that was in the business and writes.
Right.
I would not have, would not have written it that way. I mean, in that case, like I just told you off camera, they may as well had did a dusty finish. Okay.
No, like, you know, like the Becky Lynch match, like that was that was the first time while watching Becky. I mean, it made sense because she beat her in 20 seconds at SummerSlam that year. And then Bianca's journey, and she ended the story right there with an exclamation point. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can see why they went that route. But I was like, I'd rather see like somebody like Shayna Baszler or Rhea Ripley get it again. You know, Liv Morgan, you know, she's paid her dues as well, you know?
Yeah, I will. I'll tell you this. Right now, there's not really a pick of the litter in the women's division, in my opinion. But I think that Belair is getting the most attention. She's getting a bigger pop. And I think what they're doing is they're trying to capitalize off of that before, for whatever reason, and it happens sometimes, where people will, you know, get a little fickle about it and then they'll just go in another direction. So they're really trying to capitalize off of her momentum right now as a fan favorite.
I mean, it's no different than like when I talked to Lisa Wilcox and I asked her, I was like, why weren't you in Freddy's Dead? She's like, I think they just, she's like, I don't have an answer for you. She's like, I think they wanted to go in a different direction. So it's like, however, like the writers and people in that project are feeling like, okay, we're going to do a complete 360 on it, you know, but I mean, even the original, like Nancy, they killed her off in part 3, you know, it's like,
yeah, which I kind of didn't understand. I didn't understand that whole thing. So
no,
but then the first part of WrestleMania, I think, let's get to all right, we talked about the Cody Rhodes match. So let's go my opinion on the Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio, and
Logan Paul
and The Miz. Okay, here's what I thought. I was surprised that Logan Paul could hold his own and work a little bit. Because I said that to my brother, to my little brother that I've known since I was a kid. I've said that to him. I said, man, this guy can work. So, you know, as the match went on, there were a lot of tributes to Eddie Guerrero, and I was kind of proud of that because I loved Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
I met Eddie Guerrero back in 1997 at a show, and I was heading to the parking lot. Actually, that was the night I met Him, Chris Jericho, and Six Pac. It was at the Hammond Civic Center. I was on the way to work because I had to leave the show early. I had to work at 10. That show wasn't over until 11. So, I had to leave the show and get ready to go. And I seen him coming out of the back. Eddie Guerrero, sweet guy. He was just a very, very nice guy. Chris Jericho, can't say enough about him. He was a nice guy to me. Six Pac, a trip. So, anyway, I love that they did the tribute. They did the tribute to Eddie Guerrero by doing frog splashes, walking the ropes, all that stuff.
Dominic's outfit.
Stuff. It was great. I thought the Mysterios as a team was very fluent. And I think Ray is trying to kind of lay the path, for his son, because Ray is going to be leaving soon. That cat has been wrestling since he was 14 years old at churches in Mexico.
I remember his debut in WCW. I mean, he was just so small. He was like,
he was tiny. He was tiny in ECW. He was tiny in AAA.
Yeah, he wasn't as big as he was now, But
no. I mean, people don't understand
the injuries and everything.
Ray has been around.
Yeah, he's been around a while. Those injuries are building up, and he's gonna have to let it go soon.
Yeah, he's gonna have to let it go soon. Now, since we're on that, okay, let's talk about the Steve. I don't even want to talk about the Charlotte Flair match, man. That was just garbage to me. It was garbage. So let's talk about the main event, which was for the first half of WrestleMania weekend. Stone Cold Steve Austin being challenged by Kevin Owens. Entertaining. It wasn't a technically sound match. It wasn't supposed to be.
It's like the Austin Bret Hart match. I mean, it was just, there was no technicality with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I happen to have been at that WrestleMania 13 match, like probably 2 rows. Well, it was 1 row from the front. And I actually got to see a clinic being put on up close. That was one of the best matches. No, it was one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania, because you seen a character switch. Brett went in as the babyface. Austin went in as a heel. But at the end of that match, people ended up loving Austin and hating Bret Hart. It was great. It was one of the great. The writers did it right that night.
Yeah.
It was the greatest switch in history. And I got to see it up close. I got those tickets for Christmas.
Damn.
1 year. Yeah. Those tickets were like $200.
Jesus.
And it was great.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Oh, man. It was awesome, dude. Awesome.
That's still on my bucket list to get to a WrestleMania sometime.
I think we're going to have to make it a plan. Now, next year, they're going to Hollywood.
Yeah.
In 2023. Well, they've already done that.
Yeah. WrestleMania Goes Hollywood was there. That was WrestleMania 21.
Yeah.
I remember that. It was
yeah, so they've already done that.
Yeah, Batista and Triple H, and Cena and JBL. I think they're just trying to go for the big stadium looking, which is cool because they used to do the filled out arenas, then it just blew up, you know what I mean?
Oh, right. Absolutely.
But the Stone Cold Steve Austin, it brought a lot of nostalgia back for me.
I think it did for me.
And then, but as you explained the filler spots with the beer, I'm like, okay, because he's, he's in his mid-50s, right?
Actually, I think he's a year or 2 off from 60.
Oh, okay. And when he did like the suplex and all that, I'm like, because I knew about his neck, because I remember when he got dropped on his neck in '97.
Yeah,
that was a
Owen
huge
Hart thing. Yeah.
That was I can't even imagine, because I got neck problems myself, and it just like, ow. I mean, the neck, the knees, the back. I mean, it just, I mean, he looked like even when he was kind of walking, you could just tell.
You
But it
knew
brought
he got
back,
hurt.
yeah. But it brought back a lot of. I mean, it was good. It was good. Then he the commentator, he stunned him. I was he's like, he took a beer from Steve Austin. I'm like, he's getting stunned. And then bam. And I'm like, Jesus. Like, well,
oh man.
it was another stunner bath.
Well, it was typical Stone Cold.
Yeah.
I mean, he started out in Dallas, Texas, which for those that don't know, he was starting out for the USWA, aka World Class Championship Wrestling, which they have brought it back now to World Class Championship Wrestling Revolution.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So Booker T and his wife, which was hinted on in her acceptance speech, that they run a wrestling school down in Texas.
Wow.
So
I knew he ran the wrestling school, but I didn't know. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So they're connected with World Class Revolution because there was going to be, they were speculating about a Booker T match like earlier in the year, a Booker T tag match. He was supposed to be teaming with Van Dam again.
Wow.
Yeah, he was supposed to be teaming with Van Dam again, and they were going to do a WrestleMania tag match against someone. But the angle kind of, they were trying to figure out where to put it and stuff like that, and it never came to reality.
Right.
So Booker, like I said, Booker and Shamel, they run a wrestling school down there, and World Class Revolution is a place where Booker has a relationship with them. So when he gets them trained, he sends them there to get their chops. And then if he thinks they're good enough and, things like that, he'll recommend them to WWE.
Oh, nice.
So
kind of like SCW.
Yeah.
Like Ric Flair explained, he's like, if Seth Rollins thinks that they're ready, he'll send them that way to Vince. And, I mean, like I still remember meeting Booker T in Indianapolis. It was like, you see these legends out there, you're like, wow. And Booker T, he's like, was much taller than me. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Booker is a lot taller than people think he is, because I seen him that same night at the Hammond Civic Center. It was him and his brother going Stevie up against Hall and Nash. The NWO. So it was a house show.
Right.
But I think that was the night. I think that was the night 6 went against Chris Benoit.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a house show and everything. But anyhow, I am really a little curious about seeing this second part of WrestleMania tonight in an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, so my bottom line is, there was one segment that really I started laughing my butt off at. That was the opening with Mark Wahlberg, because the entire time I'm like, hey, look, it's John Cena's brother. So I put it up on Facebook. I said, hey, it's John Cena's brother, Mark Wahlberg. He's doing the opening. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like I got a good like after the music was playing for Code, I was chuckling. I'm like, boy, I can't wait to hear this one, because it's coming.
Yeah,
and, like when you've been watching the business and you watch for so long, and somebody's gonna be pissed. Somebody's gonna.
Yeah.
It's like. It's like, oh, shut the fuck up already. It's like, come on. Like tonight's Brock versus Reigns. Well,
yeah, ho hum.
I don't know what they're doing with that, but I can't see them like unifying the women's belts or the U.S. and Intercontinental or the tag. I can't see them doing that. but it wouldn't surprise me. How they have to take the title off of Reigns. They have to do it. Because honestly, I think, in my opinion, I think that's just going to ruin the night if they don't dethrone Roman Reigns.
Well, here's the reason why I think they may do it. Because Roman Reigns has, everybody knows that Dwayne Johnson is his cousin.
Yep.
Okay, everybody. It's common knowledge. You know, they've even had some ridiculous stuff that was going around, which Dwayne Johnson killed that rumor that Roman Reigns versus his cousin The Rock at WrestleMania. The reason it's not going to happen is because The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, has actually made it clear that he does not want to wrestle again. Yeah. And at this point, he can't wrestle again because he's got the seven Bucks production company.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's got that going. He's got TV shows going.
Young Rock, yep.
Yep, Young Rock. A lot of other stuff. Black Adam is coming out this summer.
Yeah. It's like,
so really, he's not going to jeopardize his health.
My thing is this too. It's like, why does he need to? If all these people say, "Oh, he needs Roman Reigns, The Rock, blah blah blah," he doesn't need that. He doesn't need to come back and do like The Rock's done everything in wrestling. He doesn't need to come back and face Roman Reigns. You know,
sure as hell don't. Dude,
no, he doesn't need it. And
dude, if you're making $20 to $25 million, a movie, why would you need to basically, make a couple of bucks?
Yeah,
coming back to wrestle. I mean, look at what happened to him last time. Yeah. He tore his quad off the bone of his leg in that last match with John Cena. He tore it off.
And he damaged some ribs too. That's why I was like,
yes. No, he's basically done.
My biggest complaint with that one was I remember that pay-per-view. I had a huge party for it at the house.
Right.
Everybody was like, because it was once in a lifetime. Cena versus Rock. Once in a lifetime. Blah, blah. And then the following year,
they did it again.
And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, if The Rock beats CM Punk for the belt, takes the belt, John Cena's going to win. And that's what happened. I'm like,
well, the reason was this. There was some talk in the locker room, and let's make no mistake, John Cena is a diva. Always has been. Okay? He's a diva. I hate to even use that word, but really, he's a diva. So the way I think it went down in the locker room was that John Cena did not want to go against CM Punk because he felt that it wouldn't draw money.
Right.
So who could draw money that's a big name, a huge name, like Dwayne Johnson? He's built that name up to almost now nearly legendary status in Hollywood.
Yep.
So I guess that the talk was we could do a Rock John Cena 2 and rob some houses. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah,
so he dropped the title to The Rock because The Rock hadn't had the title for like 10 years before that.
And he debuted with the first really the scratched big WWE logo main plate that Dave Milliken made. It's like, I love Milliken's interviews where he's like, every time I see a belt used, I just cringe. Then it's like, oh, that's just work for me. Yeah, and we'll get into Dave Milliken sometime because
the belt
as a collector, I just he owes how many people because he's backlogged so much. But if like the WWE needs a belt or this company needs a belt, the UFC needs a belt, he's right on there. And I guess his engraving company that he used closed down, and that's why I say, like, I go back to like Reggie Parks and all them when I talk about belts. It's like, it's the lineage for the belts.
Oh my God! Did you just talk about Reg Parks? Did you ever hear that story Brett told about Reg Parks?
No.
Okay, so Owen and Brett are at a show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now they're gonna go check into the hotel room, and Stu happened to be, they got Stu in.
Right.
Stu was actually staying with Brett in Brett's room. Okay, so there was a phone call, and Brett said that his dad picked the phone up, and it was supposed to be Reg Parks, the belt maker.
Yeah.
And Brett said that he heard this guy that sounded like Reg Parks saying, "Hey, Stu, yeah, Stu, you know what? I love you to death, but I can kind of take you." And Stu is turning red.
Oh, God.
Turning red.
One of Owen's ribs.
Yes. He ribbed his own dad. And he's like, and he's so mad, right? Stu was so pissed that he looked at the phone and he took it off his ear and he said, "Hey, Reg, if you wanted to try me, if you wanted to do something, why didn't you just say so?"
No shit.
And you hear on the other end of the line, this dude just breaks out and start laughing. It's Owen.
Yep.
And so Stu knew that the rib was happening. So he hung the phone up and he's like, turned to Brett and he says, "That little bastard, he got me again." I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Like Owen Hart, like it's so classic, especially like Andrew Martin Test. He was telling the story about Owen Hart, and he's like, "Oh, he was a promoter," and then they're gonna be like, he got a phone call. He says, it was Owen on the line. He says, "Well, this promoter for the WWF show tonight. We're just gonna tell him that after talking, they're like, we're just gonna tell him that Test canceled the show." And I guess Test was so worried. Then he found out it was Owen, and I'm like, man, that's like this classic story. I mean, I would like it's just those legendary stories that you hear from people in the business for so long. Like my biggest thing is, I didn't get a chance to ask Jim Duggan this, but he was telling some Andre the Giant stories, and I was about to be like, "What's your like every old school wrestler has one of these? What's your Andre the Giant story that you remember?" And he was telling me, he's like, "Yeah, it was me, Ted DiBiase, Andre the Giant, and I think Hogan was in there, and they're on this elevator on the 30th floor, and they're going down, and Andre's like, ho, 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 ho. And then Ted DiBiase says, 'Why are you laughing, Andre?' He's like, 'I farting, boss.'" You throw him to the lower level by like, I think it was floor number 7, and and Andre's still laughing. Ted DiBiase's like, "Why are you still laughing, Andre?" And Andre says, "Because I still farting, boss." Like, and when Jim Duggan, he's like, "I love Andre the Giant to death, man, but that guy could drink." And I'm like, damn.
Oh yeah, I just seen something on a Joe Rogan podcast today about Andre with Jake the Snake Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Jake the Snake Roberts said that him and Andre, at the time he was refereeing, so he had to drive Andre around.
Yeah, so which I can imagine be a nightmare.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah,
Jake said it was basically a nightmare. God, talking about, man, me and Andre, they told me I had to drive Andre around. So basically, Andre asked me to get him 2 cases of beer. He's like, so Jake said, "Well, I'll go get him 2 cases of beer."
I know where this is going.
Now, yeah. Oh, you know that story? Yeah, he said he had to get him. It was hours. It was hours away from their next destination.
Mm-hmm.
So he said around the time, that they were on the road, he said he's hearing this. Psst, 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 psst. He said, "Yeah, I was trying not to turn to Andre." He was like, "I knew he was fucking with me. So he said around the time that they got to the destination, to the hotel, Jake said he turned to Andre and said, hey, you want a beer?" He's like, "Oh, no, I'm finished." and said, Jake said, "What? You're finished with 2 cases of beer?"
Can
And he
imagine
never
the
went
pussy
to the
took after that.
bathroom once because Jake was every few miles, Jake was talking about, I got to go take a pee.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd get out and go take a pee and then get back in the car and keep driving. Right. Well, he said, Andre, he don't know what was up with this man's bladder, but he never, ever stopped for pee one time.
like Andre, like I've even said it like work. I'm like, Andre the Giant fact. Did you know, like on the plane, he couldn't even use a regular restroom? They had to pull the curtain, use a bucket, and then dump his. I'm like, what the fuck? Oh yeah, newspaper for toilet paper. I'm like I'm just like, what the fuck?
I mean, look at how hard that had to be. For someone his size.
My thing is when he broke both of his shins trying to stand, that just like I mean, like I said, when I did kickboxing and it was shin to shin, that would hurt. That hurts.
I've done that.
Oh, and I don't even want to like think because I cringe every time I think about it. But Andre the Giant, he did not have the easiest life. And that's one thing, I even said it's like, or the 16-second or 30-second fart he ripped on the Princess Bride. You doing all right, Andre? I feel better now, boss. I'm like, just if you haven't watched the Andre the Giant documentary from HBO, I would suggest it because
I think I watched that like once or twice.
It's the same thing with the Von Erichs. Any documentary you will find about the Von Erichs or Andre the Giant, you have to watch because like I guess even if you had like a 5-minute YouTube clip, I'll watch it because it's
oh man, I am a big Von Erich fan. Always had been since probably about 1979 when I first seen Kevin and David, because it was like in Chicago, it was they would show it syndication.
Right.
All right. It was syndicated. So the first time that I ever seen it, it was on one of the off channels. And I'll just tell you this. I thought wrestling from Texas was a straight up shoot, dude, because it's like these guys went hard.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about athletics and fight, you had to watch old world class stuff. Yeah. So around the time they became world class, around the time I watched it again, it was the Texas Country whipping match with the Von Erichs and the Freebirds on TV. That should have been a pay-per-view in my opinion, but
I mean, it's like, I vaguely remember that because like you got to remember, like at that time I was just a little kid wearing my, my Spider-Man jammies. I mean, I was a little kid, and like I remember bits and parts of it because like my oldest brother, but I relived those days through the network.
Yeah,
and I watched it. I'm like, man, that was some good stuff. I mean, yeah, I remember because back in the day was for me the golden era of like Hulk Hogan, Savage, Andre. I mean, for God's sake, Saturday Night Main Event when Savage and the Honky Tonk Man were going at, and Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart looked like they just got out of college. I mean, it's back in the day like that. It's just
out of college.
I was like, man, those guys are like, you see Bret Hart now. I mean, and Bret Hart had a little bit more of a little weight to him, but Bret and Jim and Neidhart, because they were with Jimmy Hart and the Honky Tonk Man, and those were the days I was like, man. But they had to go ahead and kill kayfabe and basically admit everything was freaking storyline. But it's like, I'll never forget those days, and I'm thankful that I did, because now it's like I just can't. I watch the product now, and it'll never get back to where it was, and that's the sad part. And
no, it never will. And like I was explaining to you earlier, around the time that I got introduced to it up close and personal, the first time I went to a wrestling school. I was 14. I was probably 14 or 15.
Mm-hmm.
And that was around the time that the first WrestleMania was coming out that spring.
Right.
I mean, and that's when Hogan and T was on TV.
Mm-hmm.
They were at Entertainment Tonight. They were just like everywhere.
Training Mean Gene Okerlund.
Yeah, I mean, and we were, man, us kids were pumped. I mean, we were pumped for that.
Exactly.
And when my buddy and I that actually introduced me to the business went to our first wrestling school, we didn't even know it was there.
Right.
But he was in summer school.
Okay.
And it's just so happened, which would be explained on this story, this story that I'm doing, this thing called My Story, is how we had gone to this place called Pro Wrestling International. And the school was in this building next to the L train, on Lawrence Avenue. And we went there, and the first time we went there, nobody was there. It was a Thursday night. Okay, so we left, and we were getting ready to get down the stairs, and this big dude, he was kind of old. His name was Terry the Hammer Shoal. And we seen him on the posters that was on the outside of the door. This guy had to be a good 6'3" or 4, maybe 5.
Right.
Real heavy, but you could tell that he was kind of oldish, and he was kind of jerking the curtain, Nice guy. And he caught us and he said, "Hey, did you guys want something? What do you guys want? You want to get some information?" And we were like, "Yeah." Now I'm a little guy at the time,
right,
kind of tall, but little guy, kind of like yay skinny and all that stuff. Pimply face, 14-year-old kid.
Yep.
And stuff like that. And there was he asked us all these questions. Now my buddy was big.
Right.
Okay. Buddy was big. He was maybe 18, maybe 17, something like that, around that time. And he got the information from a guy that was his summer school teacher named Bruiser Scott Reynolds. They were part of this tag team called the Reynolds Brothers. So he had actually given my buddy the information, and we got the information, went down there. So Terry the Hammer Shoal was asking us all these questions, and I think it was going to be like the following Saturday or something like that. He had to show up, and he was going to start training. So anyhow, that was the first wrestling school I was ever at where I got to actually see up close, and they embraced me. I'm just going to say this right now. There was a guy named Sonny Rogers. There was Lightning Lonnie King. There was a whole bunch of guys that was training. There was a guy named Scott Summers that was training there. There was a whole bunch of dudes training there, and they embraced me because I actually got the business and understood it.
Right.
Even at my age, I was 14. So even at my age, then I understood what the business was, and they would talk to me about the business. That's what was the most fun.
Yeah.
I could sit there with
learning all about it.
Yeah, and learn all about it and learn what it took to sell in a match, what it took to tell a story.
Correct.
And I think when people decide they want to do it, they get caught up in all of the glitz and glamour.
Yeah.
But not learning.
They lose the focus on.
Right. The foundation and what it takes to embrace, to get the crowd into what you're doing. So when I finally got in it, I was far ahead of everybody else in that, in that sense.
Exactly. And everybody's focused on, you're telling that story. It almost reminds. So I was dealing with microphone stand issues, but it almost reminds me of the story of Josh Koscheck from Ultimate Fighter 1.
Mm-hmm.
He went in an interview behind the scenes when they were doing the whole, behind the scenes special features. He says, "Why am I doing this? Fame, money, and chicks." And Dana White's like, his priorities were a little messed up. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's why I think about that when people are like, oh, how famous I'm going to be in the wrestling business. It goes back. I just keep thinking that, like, Josh Koscheck, all due respect to him, I did my wrestling back in the day, but I could never be an NCAA like he was. But Josh Koscheck, why he said that, I mean, he was just a kid anyway, but still at the same time, it's like, it's like, learn your craft in the world of fighting and learn your world in the craft of pro wrestling. It's like, don't just look at because you're not going to, it was almost like what Tito Ortiz said, like, let the babes come to you. Jesse Taylor, when he got booted off Ultimate Fighter season 8, when he won and he got drunk and went on that fucking rampage and Dana booted him from the finale. It's like, he even said, Dana White's like, you're not ready for this, dude. And it's like, people that are caught up in the glitz and glamour, it's like, you're not ready for this. It's like, why, people like that, it's like, you're not ready. You got to learn some more, and that's the thing, like, even with filmmaking, it's like every little step you're going to learn something, it's like, that's why I always kind of keep my ears open. Even like when I heard, like, listening to Clint Howard, it's like, I'm listening and I'm learning what I'm like, oh, like, that's pretty interesting. And it's not all glamour for him either. Cause like I explained, his part in 3 from Hell, he even said, I made peanuts in that scene where he dressed up as the clown. He's like, he's like, my name.
I'm sure, there are roles that Mr. Clint Howard has had.
Yeah.
Where he didn't make a lot of money.
No. And he even said, he's like, just because I'm Ron Howard's brother means nothing. He's like, just because I've been in so many movies, he's like, I got paid nothing for barely anything for 3 from Hell. And is that a mistake kind of on Rob Zombie's part? Kind of, because it's like, you got Clint Howard, who's been in almost literally every movie ever made. If he hasn't been, then he's lucky. And it's like, I don't know. It's the glitz and the glamour. I try not to buy into any of that anymore because it's like,
you can't. You can't.
And just like, there was a company I worked for. I'm not going to mention it because I don't want to plug them, but the owner, he said, he's like, yeah, I got like a 10-bedroom house, 3 bathrooms. It's like, what the fuck do you need that for? It's like the house looks like a castle. It's like, you're a fucking idiot. Why do you need that? Like,
it's called high signing, man.
Yeah.
I don't need to do all that.
No, it's like he just wants it's just a cock size thing. Like Ron Perlman was saying a couple times in Sons of Anarchy, he's like, it's just a cock size thing. Don't worry about it. It's like, literally, it's just, I go back to,
I got a lot of money, so I got to prove that I got a big Johnson.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? Let the ladies decide that.
I just put it in a bank account and go, fuck, why? I don't know. That's something I would do. It's like, I don't need nothing extravagant. I don't. I never will, because it's like Dean Ambrose, John Moxley, whatever you want to call him, he really, like, I was like, that's when I earned a lot of respect for him, because I was like, holy shit, he gets it. He's like, coming from where I've come from, he's like, I had nothing. Yeah, I made millions from WWE, millions from AEW. He's like, the problem is you can go back to having nothing at a split second. And
absolutely.
And I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. And I'll agree with that statement till I die. Because you can, just like that, it could be gone. And
oh yeah, and one day it could be gone. That's something that my mom told me. She said, I know what business you're in, and once you get to a certain level, don't ever live above your means, period.
No.
Because what will happen is that you're going to need something for that so-called rainy day.
Yeah. Oh.
So it's better to save. So
yes.
I'm a person that don't need a whole lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a pretty simple person.
Me too. And
yeah, I'm a pretty simple person. I don't need a whole lot. I'm more of a guy that if I need something, I'll get it, but it won't be, I don't need to have. I got one car. I've been driving for like 5 years, and it's an old car.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
2007.
That one Saturday, you and I drove around in my van. It's like I have nothing special.
Absolutely.
It's a Dodge Caravan.
Yeah.
We drove around like we were like the mom and pops. We're like,
Yeah, right.
Except you found out I do have a little bit of road rage.
Like, yeah, but you know what? That's well placed.
Yeah, I just but then you said you just can't handle stupidity. I'm like, no, I can't. I can't.
There you go. We're on that same wavelength.
Exactly.
I can't handle stupid people.
No, and it's like because originally I wanted to get a truck, but it's like I can do the same thing with a van. I can do a truck, and plus not having to put anything over the back of the truck. It's just one big van. That's it. And I'm happier than hell. The only reason I got when I had my Chevy Cruze because it was cheap at that time, and the engine, like they had a 50-50 batch, like one half transmission went out and the other one was all fine. But I'm glad I got my van, and something like hell, if they say, well, if you have any vehicle you want and with unlimited resource, I'm like, I'd get a van again. To be honest with you, because I don't need these. I don't know who. There's somebody's driving around with like one of them high class sports cars that look like they cost like over how many millions of dollars. It's like I don't need that. Like why? Why would I need that? I don't want that. No, fuck no. I mean, I have my collection because when I started collecting belts, I'm like, I can afford the shit. It's like why not? It's
right,
like
absolutely, and it's something that you like.
Yeah.
Okay. It's something that you like, so why not?
Yeah, and I love pro wrestling, and I love mixed martial arts, and I love boxing, which I have my actually WBA and WBO right over there.
Oh shit, that's what I want. I got to get some of those belts, man.
That's why I'm like, why not? Because I'm at that age. It's like, and now championship belts are easier to get a hold of nowadays.
Oh yeah, they're very easy now.
Yeah. And I know how many makers right now. It's like I actually had one message me today, and I'm like, dude, just back up, But the problem is like they push and they push and they push. And it's like, fuck off, But no, I mean, I never there's a belt company called Classic Shields that they're $800 to $1,500 belts, but they're top of the line, but it's like I don't need nothing like that. It's like I have my collection as long as my bills are paid. I don't give a damn,
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you, wrapping this up.
Mm-hmm.
What film did you see that you were telling me about?
It's called The Seed. If you can go online and see it somehow, well, it starts off with these three girls that are like, she's at her dad's mansion and they're getting ready for a photo shoot and a party. But they're waiting for this meteor shower. Well, the meteor shower comes, and it was like it reminded me of that Stephen King in Creepshow where he was the farmer and the meteor hit on the ground.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember that.
And then they bring out this creature that it looks like one big giant rock, but it has a face coming out of it. And they bring it out, and it turns out like the shell breaks off, and it's a monster, the creature. It reminded me of the giant creature from Cloverfield, if you remember that.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure do.
That's what it reminded me of. So it was a mixture of The Blob, that Creepshow episode, Cloverfield, and just for the hell of it, Alien Nation. So,
okay, so what's your overall rating on it for the people that might want to go watch it?
I'm just gonna say I'm gonna give it a thumbs up. Just because the cast was small. There was the three girls, the lady who played Edna, and then the one the guy in the truck at the very end of it. Like that was it. That was all the cast, and it was good. There's some good sci-fi effects in it. There's some really disgusting moments, but honestly, this film for me is going to get a 7, and all in all because of there was some what the hell moments. And I was like, and there was like, once you see it, like, well, basically, the creature opens his eyes, and then he basically transforms the women into the spaceship somehow, and then the aliens implant seeds in them. That's why it's called the seed. So at the very end, it's and like I said, childbirth to me is this,
Oh, okay.
their belly gets really big, and because the one she's yelling at the one chick, she's like Charlotte, and she's like, Deidre, what the fuck? And then she's pointing, she's like, what? She's like, what the fuck? And then she sees the belly starting to go like this, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? But I'll give it a 7. The cast was good. The acting could have been tweaked a little bit more. It landed like when the meteor landed in the pool, the creature came out. I was like, okay, that's totally like the Blob type thing. And the Blob, it basically reminded me of the Blob when it came out and took the one girl under her, and she's all, because I thought she was going to be
talking about the Blob with Shawnee Smith.
Yes, yep. One of my childhood crushes back in the day.
Oh my god, dude! Yeah. All right, I ain't gonna even get into that.
Yeah,
because me and my friends, that's why we even went to see it.
Yeah, and like when she was in the Saw movies, I'm like, oh, like she's back.
Okay,
I love her.
I gotta see the Saw movies because Now, anyhow, all right. So I've seen a movie, one of the forgotten treasures of John Travolta, and after watching this, I thought Travolta should have gotten an Academy Award.
Yeah, for sure.
In my opinion, for this movie, Gotti.
Yep.
I watched it, and he was not Travolta.
Yep.
He did a lot of studying on John Gotti.
Yeah.
He sounds like John Gotti. He walked like John Gotti, and he looked to a certain degree like John Gotti. And I thought it was some of the best acting that him and his late wife, Kelly Preston, had ever done.
I really liked how they put the ceremony in there when they pricked the finger and if you betray the family, may you burn in hell like this saint. I was like, that's the La Cosa Nostra ceremony right there. I'm like, damn, like I was impressed. I was like, holy, and that whole movie, you're just like the acting is just
the acting is
awesome. Yeah, it is.
I just, there were many times I wanted to watch it, and I said, okay, I'll get to it. But last night, after I watched Mania, and just got ready for bed and did all this stuff.
Put your jammies on.
Preparing for the next day, right? Pajamas. So yes, I still wear pajamas. They're Asian pajamas, but I still wear them. Okay.
Like they're all silky and
I used to call them my Christmas pajamas, but okay, be that as it may. I put those on and I started watching the Gotti movie, and I said, geez, if no one thought, okay, that Travolta could go. If you watch this Gotti movie, he will prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is still the man. Forget Grease, forget everything that you have ever seen Travolta in.
The Look Who's Talking series.
Absolutely. Forget all that.
Yeah.
Forget what is that?
Battlefield Earth.
Movie?
Pulp Fiction. Yep.
Forget that too. This was the best role I've ever seen Travolta in, bar none.
He did amazing as John Gotti.
He was great in this movie.
Yeah.
And it is really so underrated.
Yep.
It came out a while ago, but I still think people need to watch that, because if you had a doubt that Travolta, was not the man, that MFer is still the man.
Yeah, because and I go back to that. It's like a lot of people, like when they watch it, they're like, "Oh, it was this waste of time." It's like I can tell the type of people who would say that, because it's like, you obviously don't appreciate the history of the mob.
Nope.
It's even like people said the movie Mobsters with Christian Slater was horrible. It's like, you apparently don't respect and haven't studied up on the history of the mob, because that's one of the things I did when I was back in the day. It's like I looked everything I could find out about Bugsy Siegel, the Flamingo Hotel, like Al Capone.
Yep.
It's just one of those things. It's like, man, you just read the history of it. You're like, holy shit, the underground tunnels to Galena, illegal bootlegging with Al Capone when he stayed in Dubuque here,
Yeah,
and,
didn't he stay at the Julian or something like that?
Yeah, they have the Al Capone suite there.
Yep.
And it just, you don't really think about, especially coming in the city of Dubuque in the Midwest, you don't think of the history of like mob and, I don't know how this is going to get me whacked or anything, but the Cafaro family own the Kennedy Mall. I mean, just there's so much mob history in this area that people are just forgetting about. And, it's not all from the Jersey side. It's all, it's all around. And, people that say like, oh, mob movies are, it's like, who the fuck are you? Like, first of all, don't judge until you watched it. Second of all, it's like, even people that say, you couldn't do this is like, okay, or this movie of yours is going to be what it's like, fuck off. Like I have no time for that. And it's like, but the mob, it's every young man, if they never been interested in the mob, they were interested in something else. But like every young man is like, oh man, like people with this much power or whatever, and they don't realize how much of a dangerous life. And the movie Gotti takes you through. I mean, he was the last boss. I mean, for God's sakes,
right? I mean, and I enjoyed watching. Okay. I enjoyed watching how Travolta and Kelly Preston approach their characters and embody these people. Yeah. And, I think something that really got me was the scene where his older son had gotten up out of bed.
Yep.
And this was after his younger son had gotten hit by a car.
Yep.
And he got up. And he went to check on his dad because he was hearing something. And once he got up and he peeked around the corner to where his favorite chair was, and he seen him bawling, seen him crying, I'm like, oh, man. That's when words don't need to be spoken.
No.
Because people will get that. Like, here is the strongest man that his son had ever seen. And to see him in that vulnerable position.
That it messes with you.
It messed with him.
Yep.
And that's when it made his older son say, hey, you know what? I know he didn't want me to get into this, but I want to do something to make him proud.
Yeah.
Because, good Lord, I mean,
it was amazing acting.
I felt so bad. Like, oh man, I can't.
Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah, because that movie, when I was telling you about that, and I was like, it makes me want to bring out the Blu-ray right now and pop it in tonight. But that movie, there wasn't really like there was some good mob movies here and there, but it's like for the past since maybe Bugsy and then The Sopranos, and there wasn't really that good like a mob movie that really like grabbed you. That one does.
Yeah, and it did. It grabbed me. It kept me interested, and I just felt like, okay, going beyond all of the headlines and things people think they may have heard, and these kind of things. These people were human beings.
Exactly. They had feelings just like everybody else.
Yeah, and for all intents and purposes, okay, no matter what people have thought about this guy, he was human. He had a family.
Yeah.
And he did what he had to do to support his family and made sure that his kids went to school, went to the best schools, went to, had the best of everything.
Yeah, because every father really wants to do that.
To work hard for that.
Yeah, every father wants to do that, and
it may not be what society think that you should do in terms of your family and in terms of trying to do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you come from a background where you're kind of a street person, that's all you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you can learn to do something else, but there's that fine line though.
Yeah.
It's like, which choice do I make? Do I go the good way or the bad way? Yeah. Okay. So now we go through that shades of gray thing.
Exactly.
Where the lines are blurred, what's good and what's bad.
Yeah.
Because when his son got hit by that car, I said, well, I think you better do something. You better either leave town because the sun going in your eyes and everything.
Yeah.
That's not going to work for these guys.
No.
That's not going to work for John Gotti.
No.
Like, that ain't work for him.
It goes back to that statement about Cody and the sellout. It's like, did he go where the money's at? Everybody's going to go where the money's at. Everybody.
Absolutely. You, like, me, everybody. Yeah.
Like, and people say he's a sellout. I'm like, okay, so if somebody offered you how many figures more than what you're making now, you're not going to take it? Get the fuck out of here with that.
Cody's got a wife, okay?
Yeah, he's got a daughter.
Yeah, Cody's got a wife. He's got a daughter. He's got a family he has to look after. Yeah. And
he needs to put a roof over their head. And it's just like, it's like, these people that use that word sellout, it's like, okay, I got two fingers for him right there. That's what I got for him.
Okay, so the question to ask them is, what would you do?
Exactly.
What would you do?
Exactly.
Would you stay with a company that continues to steamroll over all your ideas?
Yep.
And you're doing things and sacrificing for the better of that company.
Mm-hmm.
And then the owner decides that he's not going to honor his side of the deal that you guys made a very long time ago, 6 years ago.
Exactly.
Because when Tony Khan brought him in, Cody was the president and CEO, which meant Tony Khan didn't know anything about the business. He wanted to bring in a guy that was the son of a legend that knew everything that it took to build personalities, to build the company, to build an organization that would be able to compete with Vince McMahon and WWE, and it did not happen.
Because like Tony Khan, he was just a fan that liked wrestling. He's like, one day it's like one day he's like, oh, I want to get into the wrestling business. Okay, son, here's how many trillions of dollars. Get the fuck. Like, you're not going to sell out or sell out to people. You're going to go where the money's at.
No,
and Cody Rhodes did that.
Cody got to feed his family. I'm sorry. The man has to feed his damn family.
And Cody, if he's getting how many fucking millions of dollars? No, they can, step on me for how many fucking, they get in the wrestling room and tombstone me, for God's sakes, for that much. I don't, it's just, it's principle. It's like that's why I say this, when we say about John Gotti, about Cody, every man is going to do what he's got to do to make sure there's a roof, there's clothes,
and food.
It even goes back to like Lawrence Fishburne and Boys in the Hood, what he said to Cuba Gooding Jr. when he was a kid. Work. I'd put food on the table, put clothes on your back, make sure there's a roof over your head. I mean, he's just going on. It's like every dad is going to want to do that.
Absolutely. I've wanted to do that. You wanted to do that. Yeah. And all of the dads out there, if you don't think like this, then
something wrong with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So
and it's like, I'm not going to mention anybody's names or anything, but I know somebody that's like who's got two daughters, and it seems like he's not even really worried about them. And it's just like, because he tries to pull the whole he tries to put on a show is what he tries to do.
Right.
And it's like, dude, shut the fuck up. It's like the same thing with everything is so ass backwards. He's like, oh, I'm not going to get the shot because it's like they tell you your job or the shot, you're gonna roll up your sleeves. So shut the fuck up.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So
Shut
I
the
don't
fuck.
fault Cody for going back.
No, I don't.
I don't. I'm
Actually, you know
worried
what?
about the way they're going to use him.
Right. Dude, I congratulate Cody. I think it's a, that's a great thing. I think, but I think the AEW marks are gonna be all. But that's my curiosity is how they'll book him.
Yeah,
but
and that was my biggest fear.
I like how the whole Stardust thing where he was like, and he pretty much shed his skin of that. And I'm like, okay, well, now he's back to Cody Rhodes. Right. I'm curious to see where this route's going to go.
I'm hoping that they use him in the proper way and they build him to be a bigger personality there.
Yeah.
I mean, because look, he has way too much history in the business.
Yeah.
Not to be built
a star
that way. And I think over the years, WWE has basically dropped the ball in terms of how they use him and how they use his brother Dustin.
Yeah.
I really think that now is the time to kind of make up for that and really respect Cody and his family and what they contributed to professional wrestling.
Yeah, because like
what I think.
Dustin Rhodes, when he was in WCW, and then he went to WWF as Goldust, he got that huge push. Yes. But after he lost to Ahmed Johnson, which that match looked like he didn't it was not fake at all. Like he literally looked like he beat the shit out of Dustin Rhodes. But
Ahmed Johnson was known to shoot on people in the ring and just be very, very heavy-handed.
Yeah.
And he even admit that himself.
Yeah. Goldust Dustin Rhodes did get a push for starters. I mean, he feuded with Scott Hall, the great Scott Hall.
The late Scott Hall, yep.
He got that push. It was a character people were like, what the fuck? Because you never saw anybody like that prior to that, But now it's like, then Dustin Rhodes went back to WCW, and then the whole Seven character where he shot on WCW management. Because I remember that Nitro, I'm like, oh shit, this was not scripted? Okay.
I actually think they kind of did that to kind of mock everything to build up this powers that be thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't even think Seven was a real character. I think that what happened was that they were trying to build up this Vince Russo thing coming in, one of the behind the scenes guys, and how great he created or supposedly had pushed all of these characters like Stone Cold and The Rock and everybody else. And I think it was a vehicle for Vince Russo more so. And I don't want to really even get into the Vince Russo thing, but it was a vehicle to kind of push his thing and introducing his powers that be thing.
I think we should get Vince Russo on here.
The whole Dustin Rhodes Seven Mark gimmick because he made reference to looking like I don't know
Uncle Fester.
I'm out here looking like Uncle Fester.
I think we should get Vince Russo on here sometime. Be like, so did you plan to kill Owen Hart or not? Messing with that. But I mean, I think Vince Russo would be an interesting guest. Kind of like.
Oh no, you know what? My son often used to chat with Vince Russo, and he actually liked Vince Russo.
Right.
He was a really square guy. He was a really nice guy. And I said, one day I would like to, try to get on and chat with him, and talk turkey, because the interviews that I seen him in, like doing interviews or being interviewed, I actually like him.
Yeah.
I've actually liked them. And you know what? Over the years, you just kind of shed that thing where you stop having these preconceived notions about people until you hear them open up their mouth.
What happened back then is what happened back then. That's, that's kind of the way I look at it. But, that's something that, something we could do. I mean, hey.
Let's work on it.
Yeah, there's got to be a way we can get that done.
Let's work on it. But anyhow,
we're gonna
wrap this up by saying that we hope each and every person starts following this show.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just want people to start supporting it because we got something for everybody. We don't only talk about wrestling in the movies, although it might seem like it, but we don't. There's other things that we talk about. You just have to stick around long enough to listen to it.
You don't know what we're going to say, what we're going to talk about next. So.
Right. So, and that's the whole magic of it. We try to appease the people.
Yeah. And, it's, I mean, there's a thing called Mighty Con. I was going to go to that last night, but I ended up falling asleep. That's why I messaged you. I'm like, I just passed out, dude. And then I said I got all these emotions going through my head, and that's something we can talk about. But
right.
There is, I'm going to try to get up to the Quad Cities very soon. I'm going to try to talk to him and try to see, because if we can get him on there and we start getting other fighters on there in the camps. The Militich camp, I think we're going to do really good with that, because that's my goal for probably, I hope next weekend is actually decent weather-wise, because I'd like to get up there. Like I said, I don't know what you're doing or whatever, but damn computer. Hitting my own desk. But I'd like to get up there soon enough and be like, hey, we're doing this podcast. Even if we have to StreamYard you, because he and I are friends on Facebook, and I was like, I'll just send him a link, like, hey, can you do this? If we have to StreamYard, if we have to go, because that's kind of my main goals. I want to get as many MMA fighters and wrestlers and even movie TV stars as possible. But I think, raffles and everything will be kind of fun too, because if we auction off or action figures or a movie or something.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, let's try to work on that. But okay, we're gonna wrap this up by saying, we talk about a whole series of subjects on here, and we are happy to try to bring you this stuff weekly, and hopefully we can get these guests lined up so we can get more people to say, hey, I mean, it's an open, it's an open thing, man. We're going to get people locally on here that are doing and making big strides here in our own city. But we're also going to get, people that are, athletes and what have you on here. It's open.
Remind you before I forget, the shirt should be done tomorrow.
Okay.
The Blind Faith t-shirts.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm going to see the quality of it, and then the person, I'm going to be like, all right, would you want to make maybe a couple, 50 to a couple $100 if you want?
Yeah.
Just depending on the quality. Because I had that designed for one room. But I'm kind of curious to see the quality and everything. So yeah, it should be done by tomorrow.
All right. So let me know what the price will be on that, and I got you. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So yeah, I'll probably just shoot you a message. I'm assuming you're at work next week, so I'm just gonna I'll shoot you then.
I'm gonna be at work. I usually work afternoon, so the best time to catch me is before 1:30.
Right. And that's the time, that's the time I'm looking at the clock going, oh, come on. You got and our shifts are two totally opposites, and I'm up the ass crack of dawn while you're passed out. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man.
But
so just let me know.
Yeah. I mean, I love my first shift job. So that's, I always preferred, I would, I first or third, second shift always been kind of a, like that shift.
I know it's a kind of crappy shift.
But yeah, you'll hear from me tomorrow for sure. And then we'll enjoy WrestleMania. Actually, I gotta run to Walmart, grab some stuff, and I gotta start laundry. I haven't even started laundry yet.
Yeah, I actually got mine going on, so now I gotta go and change it before somebody gets mad, because I live in this building where there's a bunch of other people. So
kind of like is it a laundry room, like kind of like the Big Bang Theory, where there's like 4 different washer and dryer? Okay, it's just like the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, only thing, this is smaller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a smaller laundry mat and stuff. So
you don't got a Sheldon going.
Grab my stuff out of there and try to leave
laundromats back in the day. Laundromats back in the day were awesome. I was a bachelor, and I'm like took all my stuff out of my apartment and just it was fun. I didn't care. It's like fucking I'm 19, 20 years old. What the fuck else am I gonna do on a Saturday morning, for God's sakes?
Oh my God, that's what it's like living here. Actually, it's like 8 apartments in this whole building, and like one of them is empty, and then the rest of them are occupied. So it's kind of hard, And I try to like really do my laundry like through the week, but if I don't get a chance to do it through the week, I'll try to pick Sunday because nobody's around.
And Sunday's just a lazy day anyway. That's why.
Absolutely. It's a day before you have to go back to the grind and stuff. And hopefully one day we won't have to do it. So
exactly.
There you go.
We just sit there and go, do you want to make a movie today? Yeah, it's like the Zach Braff whole thing. It's like where I made enough money, I could sit comfortably and turn down roles and offers. It's like,
oh, absolutely. Want to make
you don't want to make a movie? All right, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll do this.
Yeah.
All right.
Like, I'll sit around and watch something
like that.
I'll sit around and watch movies and do whatnot. Are you watching porn again? No, I promise.
Okay. On that note,
I don't know where I went with that, but
oh my God. Anyhow, join us next week when we'll have another episode up, and it'll be shared and stuff like that, where we'll be back in the studio. And remember, you have been watching the Pop Culture Cafe. And until then, I'm Will and
I'm Clint.
And we are out. Remember, every day above ground is a great day.
If you like, hit that subscribe button.
That's right.
Feel free to share.
All right.